ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ। Testing, testing. Okay. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Before we start off, I wanted to center our minds a little bit. So if we can start with doing Gur Mantar Jap for just about 2 minutes, and then we'll get started with the presentation. Let me full screen this. Waheguru, 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 Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So let's go ahead and get started. The title of the presentation is Sovereignty and the Ongoing Sikh Genocide. Sovereignty da matlab pooran ajadi, an ongoing genocide, because we're coming up on the month of June, and a lot of us talk about 1984 wala Kallukara. We talk about that as if it was the beginning and end of our genocide. And through the contents of the presentation, through reality, we will hopefully collectively understand that our genocide did not begin in 1984 or end in 1984. It's ongoing. So the first slide I have is, I'll go to the next slide, is of Bhai Prabhjot Singh, who is speaking about Khalistan and Sikh sovereignty, and of another person who is speaking about Hindu Rashtra. And it talks about the double standard that we are in the midst of. When one community talks about their sovereignty, it's considered illegal. It's considered terrorism. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹ ਗੈਰ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਇਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਇਹ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀ ਆ। ਪਰ ਉਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਜੇ ਬਹੁ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੇ, that's seen as patriotism. It's seen as a very noble cause. So right off the bat, we understand that the majority of India and the minorities of India live and abide by two different standards. They are not held to the same account. And so this is what we are seeing. This is what we are in the midst of right now in 2023. In the name of law and order and the unity of India, the Indian state, ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੱਕ ਕੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਦਰਿਆਵਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਿੱਟਤਾ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ, some they burned in crematories. We talk about the Chota Kallukara and the Vadda Kallukara in the 1700s. In 1746, when the Mughal armies attacked Sikhs, estimations are between 7,000 and 10,000 Sikhs were killed. In 1762, in the Vadda Kallukara, the estimation is that Mughal armies killed 30,000 Sikhs on the same day. But what is happening right now in India? The Indian state has murdered an estimated more than 200,000 to 300,000 people. So when we combine all of the massacres that we've had in our history, that can come down to just the last 30 years in India. In the name of law and order, our killings of Sikhs, our subjugation, putting our people in prisons is all justified. Jaswant Singh Ji Khalada used to talk about this. Actually, in Canada, he spoke about this. He spoke about how in the name of the unity of India, ਇਹੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਇੰਜਾਮ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਖੰਡਤਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੋੜਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. This has nothing to do with Bharat. This has everything to do with our oppression. Sikhs are not anti-India. Sikhs are not anti-Hindu. Sikhs are anti-oppression. Sikhs are anti-injustice. And that's what we need to understand. So all of this is justified. In the Indian law, all of this is justified. And these are a few of the thousands of images that exist where our people were abducted. A fear was instilled in them ਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਵੀ ਇਹੀ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ. This fear was instilled in them. So in the name of law and order, all of this is justified in India. Their killers, those officers, the people that gave them orders are still free and protected in India. ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਸਿੰਘਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਕੰਮ ਦਾ ਬਦਲਾ ਲਿਆ, ਉਹ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਆ, if they're not already gone. So this is the standard of India today. Going back to the original point that I made. We very commonly say 1984 Sikh genocide. We refer to it, we give it a number, as if ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਸਲਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਆ 84 'ਚ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਤੇ 84 'ਚ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਈ. But what ensued in the 10 years after 1984, the death tolls from those 10 years are easily 20 times higher than what happened in 1984. In 1984, they attacked Darbar Sahib and 40 of our other gurdware. They put Punjab in a curfew, and they had free rein to massacre. But that free rein continued from 1985 to 1995, the decade of disappearances. And if anyone has any doubts about this, go to insaf.org and understand just a fraction of those stories that the sevadars at Insaf were able to find. Pe aha pind chon, aha banda chakkya ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਇਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਮਾਰਿਆ, ਆਹ ਅਫਸਰ ਸੀਗਾ. Those officers are still free in India. So it's inaccurate for us to say 1984 Sikh genocide. It is a disservice to what is truly happening. ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਗਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਦੋਂ ਮਜਾਰਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਭੁੱਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ, ਅਸੀਂ 40 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜੋ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹ ਭੁੱਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ. ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਤਿਆਰ ਨਹੀਂ, ਫਿਰ this cycle will continue. And that's the point in the presentation. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਆ, it's diverted today. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੰਦੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਆ, ਉਹ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਆ. ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਆ, in Indian textbooks, they talk about Guru Hargobind Ji being a thief, about how Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji committed suicide, how Guru Gobind Singh Ji was a coward who was afraid that his father was killed. This is what is taught in Indian textbooks. So our history is still diverted today. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸਕਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਾਇਬ੍ਰੇਰੀ ਆ 84 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਸੜ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਹੱਥ ਲਿਖਤ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਸਰੂਪ ਸੀਗੇ, all of our historical texts, our Puratan books, our artifacts, all of those were taken by the Indian government. What they did is they took those, eyewitnesses indicate that they took those, they put them in an Amritsar hostel, and then they set the building on fire to say that, oh, this place was set on fire, all the stuff was damaged. No, the Indian government to this day still has our Hatlikt Sroops, our artifacts, our books, hundreds of years old, our history that is priceless. They continue to hold that today, 40 years later. So it's a disservice. That's the point that I keep making. ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ 1984 ਵਾਲਾ ਘੱਲੂਕਾਰਾ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ, ਜੇ 1984 ਵਾਲੀ ਨਸਲਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਅੱਜ ਜੋ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਆ. The drug epidemic. It's commonly stated ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਆ, ਪੰਜਾਬ will be landlocked. It doesn't have access to any water, any ports. But I was reading just yesterday, $930 million worth of drugs are imported and sold in Punjab. So almost $1 billion worth of drugs which are illegal are sold in Punjab. But the issue is that somehow Punjab will suffer because it's landlocked. The fallacy, the ਕੋਈ logic ਹੋਵੇ ਨਾ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਵਪਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ, ਫਿਰ $1 billion worth ਇਹ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ? Obviously there's lines, there's routes that can be established. So the drug epidemic is not natural. The drugs that are being sold in Punjab are not a natural phenomenon. These are drugs that are brought in and supported by the Indian state. ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਦਿਸ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਰੋਕਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਿੱਟਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਵੇਚ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਘੁੰਮ ਰਹੇ ਆ. This is another facet of our genocide. This is just another page in that book. The last generation of ours was picked up and killed and forced to migrate, and the current generation of Punjab is being killed in this drug epidemic. They want to make it seem natural. It's not a natural thing. This is a very directed and pointed attack. When the youth of Punjab is unable to stand up, the Indian government can enforce whatever measures of oppression that they want, because there will be no people left to fight back, and they understand that. So how do you subdue them? You take away their industries, you take away their ability to have any type of occupation, you funnel in drugs, and you create a sense of hopelessness. So it's ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਚਲੀਏ ਜਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਮਰੀਏ. So these are the circumstances, and these are another layer of the ongoing Sikh genocide. So I've corrected it in this next slide. It's an ongoing Sikh genocide. ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ 2 ਲੱਖ ਬੰਦੇ ਮਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਾਰੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਸਮੇਧ ਸੈਣੀ ਵਰਗੇ, ਸੁਰੇਸ਼ ਅਰੋੜੇ ਵਰਗੇ, ਅੱਜ in India they have Z plus security, which means they have a security detail of over 150 security armed guards. The Indian government very actively protects the people today that have killed us. While we are busy thinking that our genocide was in 1984, these things are occurring today to us. In Operation Shuddhikaran, Indian officers were instructed to go from village to village and sexually assault our mothers, daughters, and sisters. And those people remain free today. But the people that punish them are known as terrorists, as attawadi. So ਸਾਡਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਾਅ ਐਂਡ ਆਰਡਰ ਆ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੱਕ ਕੇ ਮਾਰਨਾ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਿੱਟਣਾ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਆ This double standard exists all across the board. So 180 billion liters of water, and I want to stress the magnitude of this. 180 billion liters of water are diverted out of Punjab every single year. Har ek saal. Without royalties, without fees, without any sort of give back to Punjab. International riparian rights dictate ਕਿ ਜੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਟੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਲੰਘਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਟੇਟ ਦਾ ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਰਿਸੋਰਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਸ ਰਿਸੋਰਸ ਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਟੇਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਹੱਕ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਟੇਟਾਂ ਕੋਲਾ ਵੇਚਦੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਾਇਲਟੀ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਰੇਤਾ ਵੇਚਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਰਿਸੋਰਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਹੋਵੇ they get the royalties. But Punjab, whose name is literally created based on river water, Punjab, ਉਹ 'ਚੋਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਡਾਇਵਰਟ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ for free. Let's peel back the layers a little bit. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਬੰਦਾ ਪਾਣੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ 1978 ਵਿੱਚ ਅਨੰਦਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਰੈਜ਼ੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਹੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਸੀ ਪਾਣੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ and they had to figure out how to change that narrative to present the people that were promoting it to be terrorists. We're not going to be able to fight the Anandpur Sahib resolution because all of these points are just. How do we paint the people that are promoting it as terrorists so that we never have to actually argue what this is about? We never actually have to justify our oppression. So today, when Sidhu Moosewala publishes SYL, another canal which is under construction to divert even more water out of Punjab, they make noise about that saying how ਇਹ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਆ they understand that ਸਾਡਾ ਇੱਕੋ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਰਡ ਆ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਕਹੋ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀ ਆ ਇਹ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕੋਈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਵਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੁੱਛੂਗਾ ਕਿ ਕੱਲ ਹੀ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੋਊਗੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਰਾਖੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ that you've protected us. This is exactly what happened in Delhi in 1984 as well. When Rajiv Gandhi, Amitabh Bachchan, all of those politicians organized mobs to kill Sikhs, a month later, Rajiv Gandhi received so many votes in re-election that Modi has never gotten that many votes. Indira Gandhi, any prime minister of India, has not received that many votes as Rajiv Gandhi did. The translation of that is, when the Indian population sees that there's a threat and someone has eliminated that threat, that person is re-elected and brought back into power. So you have to paint someone as a threat. Right now, it's Sikhs. Sikhs are these big bad terrorists. When they talk about their water, when they talk about their history, when they talk about Sikhi, ਜਦੋਂ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਲਾਲ ਕਿਲੇ ਤੇ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਥ ਦਿਓ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਾਰਾਂਗੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰੀਇਲੈਕਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ This is the problem between a nation state model when the majority outweighs the minorities by this much. Sikhs are 26 million people but are still only 2%. Through a nation state model, they will never be successful. They will always be oppressed. So it is an ongoing Sikh genocide, not just a 1984 Sikh genocide. ਅੱਜ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਟ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਬੰਦੇ ਧਰਨਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਬਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫੋਨ ਚੱਕਣੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੈਪਟਾਪ ਚੱਕਣੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਟੈਕਸਟ ਚੱਕਣੀ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਰਾਉਣਾ ਧਮਕਾਉਣਾ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਹ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ This is happening in 2023. The threat to Sikhs is as active in 2023 as it was in 1984, if not worse. And I'll make that point in the next slide as well. NSA, National Security Act. They're saying Sikhs are threats to national security, to India's national security, even though it was Sikhs who gave 95% of the sacrifices required to free India from the British. Even though it was Sikhs who gave 85% plus of the life imprisonments required for Indian independence. Now those same Sikhs are terrorists. Now those same Sikhs are national security threats. ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤਿੰਨ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਮੈਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਲਾਈ ਆ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ। 1978 ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਆ, 1984 ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਆ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਆ, these three Singhs got life imprisonment in India. They got life imprisonment for just having text. Whereas there are people in India right now saying that if you convert a Sikh girl into a Hindu girl, you will get 700,000 rupees. If you convert a Muslim girl to a Hindu girl, you'll get this much money. There is literally bounties and amounts of money put on conversions. And those people are free in India. But when Sikhs have books on their own history, they get life imprisonment. The double standard must be understood, and the ramifications of the double standard and how we move forward from this must also be understood. Going forward to the water, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਨੰਦਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਰੈਜ਼ੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਆ 1978 ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਦੋਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਲੈਵਲ meters below ground level. Parts of Punjab had water that was just 2 meters below ground level. 5 meters below ground level, or 10. Move to 2017. The map has changed drastically. ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਅੰਦੋਲਨ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਹਟਿਆ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਸਿਰਫ 3 ਬਿੱਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ। ਕਿਸਾਨ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਗੂ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪੂਰੀ ਸਮਝਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਿਰਫ 3 ਬਿੱਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ। ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀਪ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ, ਇਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਿਸਾਨੀ ਬਿੱਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਹੋਂਦ ਦੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਆ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਢਾਹ ਲਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਨੂੰ। But when you look at the facts and figures, ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੱਲ 3 ਬਿੱਲਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਨਾ ਤਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ, ਨਾ ਹੁਣ ਹੋਇਆ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਖੁਦਕੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਕਰਜ਼ੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਖੁਦਕੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਕਰਜ਼ੇ ਆ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਬੋਰ 4-4, 5-500 ਫੁੱਟ ਥੱਲੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਪਾਣੀ ਲੈਣ ਨੂੰ, ਉਹੀ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। And if you look at the map, more and more of Punjab is they are accessing groundwater so far down in the ground that now they are uncovering uranium and cancerous materials. So even the water that they are putting on their crops is cancerous. The people that are ingesting those crops, ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਸਬਜ਼ੀਆਂ ਬੀਜ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਖਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ, we're confused as to why cancer rates are so high in Punjab. And keep in context, Punjab is the land of 5 rivers. There are literally rivers flowing through Punjab. So they should not be digging underground to get water. There are literally rivers flowing through Punjab, but they are not allowed to access that water. Nor does Punjab get any royalties for that water. The farmers understand that the business they're in is a losing battle. ਪਰ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰੀਏ ਵੀ ਕੀ? Every year, 200 plus industries leave Punjab. They're exiting. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਧਰਨੇ ਲਾਉਣੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੈਂਸਰ ਵਾਲਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਾਣੀ 'ਚ ਨਾ ਸਿੱਟੋ, ਦਰਿਆਵਾਂ 'ਚ ਨਾ ਸਿੱਟੋ, ਧਰਨੇ ਲਾਉਣੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਆ। We have to protest to get basic human rights. So these arguments that are anti-sovereignty, that are anti-our safety, are fabricated narratives by the Indian state, is to convince us that our safety, our sovereignty, ਸਾਡੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ, ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ। They are full force trying to convince us of that. But all of the facts and figures come to the same conclusion, and that is without freedom, without Ajadi, without Khalistan, in the next 10 to 15 years, Punjab will be a desert. We will be the next Rajasthan, and we will still not have rights over our water. What are we going to do in Punjab ਜਦੋਂ ਟੂਟੀ ਘਮਾਉਂਦੇ ਤੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਨਾ ਨਿਕਲੇ? ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਸਰੋਵਰ ਪਾਣੀ ਨਾਲ ਭਰਨਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਤੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਿੱਚ? And this is not far removed from our lifetimes. We will see this in our lifetimes. Our genocide is still happening. At the UN, they've reported कि सिर्फ पंजाब को 15 to 20 साल है पानी नाल. Overuse of fertilizers and pesticides and factory spillage of chemicals into rivers are one of the major causes of cancer in the state that can be linked directly to issues surrounding the polluted environment and waters that the people of Punjab have been forced to contend with. These are not issues that the state cannot solve. These are not issues that the state is confused about what the solutions are to. The solutions are right in front of them. They were presented to them 40 years ago. But those solutions have been ignored because the exploitation of Punjab is too valuable. Free water, free soldiers. You have music. You have people getting recognized for their music around the world. And those people are labeled as Indians. But when those same people talk about farmers, then their accounts get raided. Then they're labeled as terrorists. So when it comes to recognition and all of the things to exploit from Punjab, the Indian state is in full force. But when it comes to solutions for Punjab, it's like we don't know what to do. And the reason they don't know what to do is because the exploitation of Punjab is too valuable. They will continue to exploit Punjab. The reason many of us sit in this room or stand in this room today is because of forced migration. Migration rates in Punjab, I'm not sure if I go over this, in the rest of India are below 200. That means 1 lakh je banda hove, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ 200 ਬੰਦੇ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ 'ਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਿੱਚ 850 ਬੰਦਾ ਲੱਖ ਦੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ. So 4 times the national average of Punjab is leaving India. In Chandigarh, 10,000 out of every 100,000. So 10% of the population is leaving Chandigarh for outside, for America, Australia, Canada, whatever it may be. These are not accidental. These are very strategic. The more that you can subdue the people that will act for Punjab's favor, for the rights of Punjab, the more you can ship them outwards and say, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੀਜ਼ੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਣੇ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਇੱਥੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਹੱਕ ਬਣਦਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ. The more that you can create these circumstances, the easier it is for you to continue your exploitation. The easier it is to continue Hindu Rashtra. So that's what's happening in Punjab right now. This wave of drugs, we state pretty commonly, and we say inaccurately, in my opinion, that these nashe have hit Punjab. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਆ ਨਸ਼ਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਫਸੇ ਆ. But we ignore all of the circumstances that create that necessity, that create that particular situation. Joblessness, hopelessness, forced migration, forced silencing. All of these are situations that create the perfect scenario, the perfect storm for the youth to be addicted to drugs. And this is not a brand new strategy. This is what oppressive regimes have always put in place in world histories in all parts of the world to subdue the population that they are trying to exploit. In this current place, today, Punjab is being exploited by the Indian state. And to continue the exploitation, the youth of Punjab must remain hooked on drugs. This is why when Amritpal Singh goes into Punjab and says, Sikhi wal jado, nashe chaddo, they're in jail under the National Security Act. And the people the commonly known politicians and dealers of drugs continue freely. 75%, 75%. ਜੇ ਇੱਥੇ 4 ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੋਂ 3 ਨਸ਼ਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋਆ. These are the statistics. 44% of those in Indian jails for drug abuse are from Punjab. The abusers of drugs ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਾਲੇ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ ਅੱਧੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਚੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਚੋਂ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਆ. And Punjab is just 3 to 4% of all of the Indian populations, but they account for half of the people in Indian jails for drug abuse. I did end up talking about it. So 163 is the national average for migration in India. 163 people. So if there's 100,000 people sitting here, 163 of them will leave India for foreign countries. In Punjab, it's 4 times that, 5 times that, 859. This forced migration is the consequence of a grave violence that the Indian state has put on Punjab. And it's not that this violence was put on Punjab and then taken away. The people that instilled this violence, the people that enacted this violence, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਫਸਰ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੱਕੋ ਐਂਡ ਡਿਸਅਪੀਅਰ them, ਉਹ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਕਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਰੱਖੇ ਹੋ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿ ਵੀ ਦਊਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬੇਲ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੱਢ ਲੈਣਾ ਤੇ ਕੱਢਿਆ. ਪਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੰਦੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਜਥੇਦਾਰ ਜਗਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਹਵਾਰਾ, ਪਰਮਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਭਿਓਰਾ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਖਾਤਰ ਇੱਕ ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਧਿਆ, ਉਹ ਹਾਲੇ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ. These are all part of that double standard. Our justice is terrorism, but their terrorism is justice. This is the state of a Sikh in India right now. When you go on to more modern phenomenon, India shuts down the internet 10 times more than any other country in the world. ਕਸ਼ਮੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਟ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਕੇ ਰੱਖਿਆ. ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਿੱਚ 18 ਮਾਰਚ ਤੋਂ 21 ਮਾਰਚ ਤੱਕ, some places even longer, ਇੰਟਰਨੈਟ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਕੇ ਰੱਖਿਆ. All over India, the circulation of news is muzzled by the Indian state. And it's always given the justification of the unity of India. We're doing this to prevent the spread of false news, and we're doing this for the unity of India. Under the guise of unity of India, thousands of our people have been killed, hundreds of our people remain in jails, billions of dollars worth of drugs are sold in Punjab, all under this justification. When you try to spread news about the reality, whether you're from Punjab or whether you're from a foreign country, when you try to speak the reality of what's happening in Punjab or what's happening with Sikhs or our oppression, then your voice is silenced. But at the same time, they want to say, ਲੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਤਾਂ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ. ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤਾਂ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਰੌਲਾ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਇੱਥੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ. But when Sikhs do, when Sikhs are, they're put in jails. When Sikhs do speak, they are silenced. Their accounts are deleted. The journalists that are going to speak our perspective are silenced by the Indian state. So how is it possible that while you are actively arresting people and silencing people in Punjab, that no one in Punjab supports this specific cause? It's a farce. It's a fallacy. This is just a narrative, a concocted narrative created to try and negate our activism, to negate the cause of Sikhi. Continuing, on the World Press Freedom Index, if India was truly doing nothing oppressive, they are number 150 out of 182 countries in the world on the World Press Freedom Index. That means ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰ ਆ, or you're a journalist of any kind, that you are living in the 150th worst nation out of 182. You are this likely to be silenced in the Indian state, all for reality. And this isn't just specific to Sikhs. Any Kashmiri activists are subject to the same treatment. Any even Hindu activists that speak the counter narrative to the popular Indian state narrative are subject to the same treatment. ਇਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ silencing ਹੈ. So this is how the Indian state functions. And this is not a new phenomenon. ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਮੋਦੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਮੋਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਖਰਾਬ ਆ. ਮੋਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਲਈ ਠੀਕ ਸੀ? ਸਾਡੀ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ ਆ 1850 ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈ ਆ from the British Raj, and it was transferred to the Indian state in 1947. Our oppressor has just changed. The tactics remain the same. Our oppression remains the same. ਕਿਉਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਜਾਂ ਮੁਗਲ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਜਾਂ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ? ਕਿਉਂ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਬਣ ਗਈ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰੋ? ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸੀਪਲ ਆ, ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦੇ ਭਲੇ ਦੀ, ਇਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਦੇ, ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਛਕਣਾ, ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਧਰਮ ਕੋਈ ਉੱਚਾ ਨੀਵਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ. These are the polar opposite of how the Indian state operates. The Indian state operates on a highly stratified hierarchy. These people are above, these people are below, your jobs are this, you can't do these jobs, you can't move this way. This is how the Indian state operates. And they're trying to fit Sikhs into this narrative. ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਕਰਾਓਗੇ ਇਹ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਮੈਰਿਜ ਐਕਟ ਆ. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਆ ਇਹ ਹਿੰਦੂਇਜ਼ਮ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਅੰਸ਼ ਆ. They are just one branch of Hinduism. Why must they try to eliminate Sikhi? And that is because Sikhi is the polar opposite of how the Indian state operates. One operates on division, unity, inclusivity, and the Indian state operates on exclusivity and division. They cannot coexist. ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਆ ਰਹੂਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਹੋਗੇ, ਦੋਨੋਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ. And this is a reality we must understand. It's almost like we're confused. ਜਦੋਂ ਅਹਿਮਦ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਅਬਦਾਲੀ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਹਮਲੇ ਕਰਨੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ when he kidnapped the women of India, when he looted them, when he used to come through ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਆਪਣੇ ਧੀਆਂ ਭੈਣਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛਡਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਦੁੱਖ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਆ ਇਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਰਾਜ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਘਾਟਾ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ. So the ਵੱਡਾ ਘੱਲੂਘਾਰਾ in 1762 was an outcome of that. Is that ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕੌਣ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣ ਵਾਲੇ? ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚ ਲਓ ਵੱਡਾ ਘੱਲੂਘਾਰਾ 1762 1762 ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ we refer to that as very big days in our history. But the amount, by sheer numbers, that the Indian state has murdered of India is 10 times higher. And this is a country that Sikhs continue to pretend that they are safe in, that they must exist in. So we'll continue on from here. I made that last point. ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਸਟਰਕਚਰ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ, ਦੋਨੋਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ. The double standard. ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉੱਪਰਲੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਖੱਬੇ ਵੱਧੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਸ ਰਹੇ ਆ, they were freed 14 years after gang raping and murdering 7 members of Bilkis Bano's family. In 2002, when Modi, the current Prime Minister of India, sanctioned the genocide of Muslims in 2002 in Gujarat, the people at the top left were part of the mobs that initiated such atrocities. They got 14 years and they're out. ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਲੱਡੂਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹਾਦਰੀ ਵਾਲਾ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਜਾਓ। Ram Rahim, everything absolutely anti-Sikh, anti-Panthic. He comes out on parole every few months for 40 days. ਪਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਦੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਆ, Professor Puller ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਚਲੋ, they weren't even able to prove that he did anything wrong. Out of the 150 witnesses that came to speak about Professor Puller, no one was able to incriminate him of any crime. But he continues to be held in Indian jails and was held in solitary confinement to the point where his mental health is suffering. ਬਾਕੀ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਆ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ, ਸਾਡੀ ਖਾਤਰ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ। But that's besides the point. The point I'm making is the double standard. How is one person's murder justified and another person's, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਧਿਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਆਰਡਰ ਦੇ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਆਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਾਰੋ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਇਜ਼ ਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੋਧਿਆ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਹਾਲੇ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ। So this is the double standard that exists. ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਆ, our narrative, our story, our oppression, our internet shutdowns, anything that relates to Sikhi is being told by the Indian state right now. Our narrative is being convoluted, is being presented with such a bias that anyone reading this narrative thinks that Sikhs are to blame, that oppression against Sikhs is justified. So our story is being told by the person that is killing us. ਜਾਗੋ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਥੇ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਸੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿਤੋਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੰਗਣਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਾਂਸੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਟੰਗਣਾ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਹੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਾਂਸੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਟੰਗਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਮੰਗ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਇਹ ਮੰਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ। This is a demand. This is a right. And ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ, ਬਾਪੂ ਸੂਰਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਾਰੀ ਆ। 90 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਕੱਲ ਪਰਸੋਂ ਜੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਤਾ ਫਿਰ ਹੰਗਰ ਸਟ੍ਰਾਈਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਆ ਇਹ ਨਾ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੱਕ ਮੁੱਕਣਾ, ਇਹ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਾਰੀ ਆ। And all of us in attendance today, this presentation today is a reflection of ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਆ, this movement, it continues. Now we'll go on to some of the things that are commonly said. ਕਾਫੀ ਪਾਸੇ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਇਹ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਾਜ ਨਾ ਚਾਹੋ ਮੁਕਤ ਨਾ ਚਾਹੋ ਮਨਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਚਰਨ ਕਮਲਾਰੇ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ, ਸਾਡਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੰਗ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ, ਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੁਕਤੀ ਦੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। So the literal translation of Gurbani people are using as a justification for their complacency. Right? So if that is the case, ਫਿਰ ਆਨੰਦ ਸਾਹਿਬ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੇ ਕੋ ਗੁਰ ਤੇ ਬੇਮੁਖ ਹੋਵੇ ਬਿਨ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਮੁਕਤ ਨਾ ਪਾਵੇ। The whole party is about liberation. The whole party, every single line talks about liberation. It talks about mukti. So Gurbani isn't meant to be taken literally. Gurbani is an experience. Gurbani is something that we understand, that we reflect, and that we apply. But some people, some Sikhs, unfortunately, use the previous line that I showed you as a justification to do nothing. This is our mentality. Another example. ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਡਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਗੁਰ ਅਮਰ ਕਰਾਇਆ, ਅਮਰ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਅਮਰ is immortal. But then in Bani repeatedly they talk about life and death, that every mortal is subject to life and death. So that immortality is not meant to be taken literally. It is meant to be taken as an experience, that ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ 'ਚ ਇੰਨੀ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਮਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਦਾ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਲਈ ਜਿੰਦਾ ਰਹਿਣਾ। So when we use Gurbani to justify our lack of involvement, that is a disservice, and that is a reflection of what your true intentions are. So I won't get into too much of the anti-narrative. There's a whole wall block of narrative that the Indian state has put up. It is not hard to take apart. It is not hard to debunk, but I don't want to get into it right now just for lack of time. Here we are. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕੋਈ ਰਾਜ ਮੰਨਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ। The idea of Sikh sovereignty, the idea of Raj, is not born out of greed. It's not born to feel like we are kings and it's to oppress others. In the sense of power and enjoyment, ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ। ਉਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਦਾ। ਸਾਡਾ ਜੋ ਰਾਜ ਹੈਗਾ, it is to enact the principles of Sikhi. ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦੀ ਭਲੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, in the current day and age, we have no political structure, no resources that are backing it. ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦੀ ਭਲੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ, there must be some sort of structure that says, this is how you implement. Here are the resources you require to implement your principles of Sikhi. At the moment, we don't have that. How do we enact Halemi Raj? How do we talk about Begumpura without a structure? ਜਦੋਂ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਪੰਥ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੰਥ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ, ਪਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕੋਈ ਰਿਸੋਰਸ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਕੋਈ ਬੈਕਿੰਗ? ਹੁਣ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਆ, if we're going to initiate a war on drugs, these are the steps we're going to take. You have this much budget, you have this much budget, this is your job description. So in that interview, he's like, I don't have those resources. It is not my job to be doing this. So without Raj, without a political structure backing us as a resource, how do we enact the principles of Sikhi? We can talk about Sarbat da Pala all day long. We can talk about Begumpura all day long. ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕੋਈ ਗਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਹਲੇਮੀ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। But how do we implement that in society? How do we implement that first within Punjab, within Sikhs, and then in the entire world? At the current moment, without Raj, without sovereignty, we don't have the resources required. And we understand in the current circumstances, the opposite is happening. Attempts to erase our existence are happening in this day and age. So going back to 1984 Sikh genocide, that's inaccurate. It's still happening today. I mentioned this term earlier, complacency. The official definition of complacency is a feeling of calm satisfaction with your own abilities or situation that prevents you from trying harder. There's a large part of the Sikh population who has some sort of internalized guilt about not talking about the sovereignty of their people. So instead of staying quiet, what they'll do is come to the forefront and say, Sada Guru ta kehanda Raj na chaho, Mukta na chaho. So eh pata nahi kehdi galla kari jande ha. To justify your lack of involvement, you are going to drag down the justified needs of a whole community. And this is what's happening. ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਦੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ, ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸੱਚ ਆ। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂਟੈਲਿਟੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ। ਪਰ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਦੇਖੋ, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਵੇਚ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰੋਕੋਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਹੋਣੀ ਆ। ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਚੁੱਕੋਗੇ against that, you're the one that's going to jail. Gulami is not physical. We are not all sitting in Indian jails, though a large population of us is. Gulami is the lack of ability to implement Sikhi. Gulami is saying that someone can murder your family, that Indian police officers can massacre your family and your relatives and your friends, and then be protected by that, for that. This is gulami. ਖਾਲਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂਟੈਲਿਟੀ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਹੈ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਨੂੰ। ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਆ, if we pretend that these are not existing, then we are doing a disservice. We are misrepresenting what's actually happening. In the same interview that I was mentioning earlier, the interviewer said, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਚ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਲੱਗ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚਿੜੀ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਮੀਟ ਕੇ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਵੇ ਕਿ ਬਿੱਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਈ। ਫਿਰ ਜੇ ਸੱਚੀ ਕੋਈ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ, ਫਿਰ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਹੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਲੈ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਹੀ ਸੈਲੀਬ੍ਰੇਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। Somewhere intrinsically you understand that sovereignty and freedom is the most important. But then you create all these layers of narrative that try to make you negate that try to deviate you from that path. And when we look at the idea of Raj, it comes from Singhs like Akali Phula Singh, who understood ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰਾਜ ਆ ਉਹ ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਚੱਲਦਾ. That is the only way it can operate. That's the only way that we can implement ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਿਆਸਤ ਪੈਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੁੱਤੀ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਧਰਮ ਸਿਰ ਦੀ ਪੱਗ ਆ. That's exactly the mentality that must remain. The Panth must dictate what our socio-political agenda is. Dharam must dictate that. And Akali Phula Singh, things like that understand. So there's this whole narrative between Sikhs that we can't talk about Raj, we can't talk about this. Well then, can you say people like Akali Phula Singh, who stood in the midst of the battlefield when the Shukar Chakiya missile of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and the Pangi missile of Amritsar were going to go to war with each other, and Akali Phula Singh comes into the middle of the battlefield and says, "मैं अमृतसर दी धरती ते सिखां नूं सिखां दा खून नहीं डोलण देना." He was the reason that our Raj was established. He fought multitudes of wars. Multan di jang vich, Peshawar, Kasoor, किन्नियां जंगां लड़ियां अपने ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੇ. ਪਰ ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲ ਰੱਖ ਕੇ ਕਿ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ. This is the only way we can move forward. So those individuals of us that say that sovereignty, Raj, is not the solution, well, do you have the might? Do you have the audacity to say that ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੁਰਾਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਿੰਘਣੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਗਲਤ ਸੀਗੇ? ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਗਲਤ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਤੋਂ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਚੁੱਪ ਰਹੋ. ਪਰ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਆ, then don't justify your complacency. If you don't want to do anything about it, don't justify it. Sit on the sidelines. This is how our history was made. When Benji was making an introduction earlier in the presentation, she asked why I got into this to begin with, or why I speak about this. And my response immediately that came was, when ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਭੀੜ ਪਈ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਘੱਲੂ ਘਾਰੇ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ, our Singhs didn't just hide in the sidelines. Our Panth didn't just hide on the sidelines. They came forward and they did something about it. They didn't need to free the thousands of Hindu girls that Mughal rulers were taking to Gajni Bazaar. They didn't need to do that. It was this idea of sovereignty, of Sarbat da Pala, that forced them to do it. So long as we continue to understand कि पंथ दा ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਆ ਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਹੋਣਾ, the first priority is the Panth, and Panth must look over Raj. That is the model that we need to move forward with. The next thing, I have just a few more slides. The next thing is, this is a narrative that I'm seeing popping up. And actually, you guys are in Toronto, so you understand this pretty well. Any violence from a Sikh that supports Ajadi, that supports Khalistan, any wrongdoing that they are caught in, Indian media will take that report and make it representative of Khalistan, make it representative of sovereignty, when it's not. So this is also a personal note, is to, as we move forward, is to understand the ramifications of our actions. The next thing is, since Sikhs have not done anything violent, have not implemented any oppressive policies, that the Indian state must do it themselves to present that Sikhs did. ਆ ਮੰਦਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੈਂਡਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਜਿੰਦਾਬਾਦ ਲਿਖਿਆ, ਜੋ ਵੀ ਹੋਇਆ, ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ, this is not a belief of Sikhi ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਧਰਮ ਸਥਾਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੁਛ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੈਂਡਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਕਰੋ ਜਾਂ ਤੋੜ ਭੰਨ ਕਰੋ. The Indian state implemented this, took pictures of it, and made it represent what Ajadi is for a Sikh. In decades ago, in the 70s and 80s, they used to pull Hindus off of buses, kill them, and say, Santa ne bandiyan ne marwaya. All the newspapers used to say the same reports. This is how they galvanize support against Sikh sovereignty. Is once you convince the public that there's a threat, once you have committed these atrocities and convinced the public ਕਿ ਇਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ, ਇਹਦੀ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਖਤਰਾ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਅਟੈਕ ਜਦੋਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਜਦੋਂ ਲੱਖਾਂ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਚੱਕੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਮਾਰੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, no one bats an eye. No one is confused, no one is concerned, because in their minds, it's justified. So the vandalizing of mandars, whatever this may be, it happened in so many different countries. And actually, at the end of the day, it was exposed who actually did it. And it wasn't Sikhs. Nor would a real Sikh, a true Sikh, go to the religious institution of any other faith and do such a thing. But this is portrayed as representative of Sikh sovereignty, when it's not. So coming to my last few slides. So what now? Do we just create posts on Instagram, give presentations, and then move on with our lives? And the answer is no. It's almost a formality in these types of presentations or in Gurdwara to say, Gurbani na jodo. A formality ban gayi. Par jehdi Gurbani a, jehdi Sikhi a, it fundamentally transforms you as a person and your movement as a whole. When you reflect on what the gurus have stated, when you apply those principles, it fundamentally transforms you. It's almost like it's a compass, and Jedi Gurbaniya, it points you in the right direction 100% of the time. So a formality ban gayi कि Gurbani di gal karo, Gurbani na jado, sare Sikhi na jodo. This is not a formality. When we go to the picture that I had earlier when we talked about Panth and Raj, Panth tahi banda je Gurbani di gal karunge. That is the only idea that is the only way you can implement the ideas of the Panth, is if you are interconnected with Gurbani. If Naam Abhyas, Amrit Vela, Gurmantar Jap Simran, all of this stuff, Sangat, all of this is an intricate part of your life. And the last point on this, since Dharam guides politics, politics does not guide Dharam. But we like to separate the two. We like to say, Gurdwara, ਇੱਥੇ Dharam ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਆ, ਇੱਥੇ politics ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਾ ਕਰੋ. But without talking about politics, the Indian state pays people to do beadbi of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Without talking of politics, the Indian state makes sure that the youth of Punjab is dying. makes sure that people keep migrating, makes sure that we are getting disconnected from who we are. So how can we not talk about Panth? We have a spectrum in Sikhi. A lot of us do a ton of kamai, but we don't think about how this kamai will reflect to the Panth. And then we have a certain amount of people ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਜਪਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ. We have a spectrum. ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਧਰਮ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿਆਸਤ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, this is intertwined. Our history has showed us it's intertwined. Our Puratan Singh Singhniya have showed us that these are intertwined. The fact that we try to separate them consistently is for our convenience. It's easier for us to go to a gurdwara and do kirtan and do nam abhyas and say we are good Sikhs. It's easier for us to live in that tunnel vision. But in reality, when you talk about the principles of sarbat da pala, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੇਰੇ ਭਾਣੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ, when do we pay attention to the contents? If the answer is never, then by all means continue to live a one-sided version of what Sikhi is. But Sikhi is both. Jithe mala a, uthe teg vi a. These are concurrent. Our history has shown us that. So we are deviating from this because it's more convenient. Because a fear has been instilled in us. A fear has been instilled in our last generation that if you talk about certain things, you are under fear of persecution. ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਚੱਕ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਜੂਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ. But historically, that has never been the fear. I'll give you a short story. A lot of us probably know this. ਜਦੋਂ ਮਲਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਜੰਗ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਹਰੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਲਵਾ, ਅਕਾਲੀ ਫੂਲਾ ਸਿੰਘ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਖੜਕ ਸਿੰਘ, ਸਾਰੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਮਲਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਲੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਸੀ, ਜਮਜਮਾ ਤੋਪ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰੀ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਤੋਪ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਮਲਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੰਧ ਸੀਗੇ ਢਾਹ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ. And in the midst of that, they understood that Sikhi and politics cannot be separate. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to do those things. ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਧਰਮ ਤੇ politics ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਇਹ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਆ. And they understood that. So when they talk about Sarbat da Pala, and when we talk about Sarbat da Pala, the two are two completely different things. They implemented Sarbat da Pala. They came forward and they said, this is what the responsibility of a Sikh is. ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੰਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਕੋਨੇ 'ਚ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਭਗਤੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੜੀ ਜਾਣਾ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਤੋਂ. ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੱਥ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਲਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਹੱਥ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇਗ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਆ. ਸਾਡਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸ ਰਿਹਾ. So what is our role? ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ, it's not a formality to say ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੋ. That should not be viewed as a formality. It is intrinsic, it is transformative, it is a fundamental part of how Ajadi and Sikh Raj will look in the future. The next thing is, understand what your role is. ਸਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਬੋਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਸਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਪਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ. Not everyone is a videographer. Not everyone has money to donate. Not everyone can create content. But you are most definitely good at least one thing. How do you take advantage? How do you leverage that one thing that you excel in and put it towards the Panth? Put it towards what Sikhi truly is in Sarbat da Pala. If you have a ton of money, there are more than enough places where you can donate, more than enough places where you can create positions that will benefit Sarbat, that will benefit not just mankind, but all of life itself. What is your role in that? Gurmat da prachar karna. This is where Sant Ji started. This is where Amartpal Singh started, is forget everything. ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਵੱਲ ਆਓ. This was the largest problem to the Indian state. The youth that they worked so hard to subdue over the past 3 decades, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਸ਼ਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਹੜ੍ਹ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੋਡ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਹੀ ਜਾਗ ਪਏ ਤੇ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਦਾ ਵਪਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਸਲੋ ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਿਆ. I'm sure internally they thought that if we let this guy continue for another year, what's going to happen to our business? What's going to happen to the $930 million worth of drugs that is confirmed? It's probably double that. What's going to happen to all that trade? What's going to happen to all those sales? So let's put him in a jail and say he's a national security threat. And that's exactly why him and many others remain in jail. And the journalists can't talk about it because they're under fear of persecution. And our opinions out here in the diaspora don't seem to matter because ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਸੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਟਰ ਕਰੇ, ਕੀ ਫਰਕ ਪਊਗੀ? So you understand the multi-pronged approach in which the Indian state is using to negate our opinions. So find your role. Lay roots in Punjab. ਕਈ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ 에ਅਰਪੋਰਟ ਤੋਂ ਮੋੜ ਦੇਣਾ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ 'ਚ ਕੱਟਣੀ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਮਾਰ ਦੂਗੇ. ਪਰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ. Not everyone is under that circumstances. You can lay your roots in Punjab. At least in your pind you can help. Build connections with Naujawan there. There are plenty of people doing good work in Punjab. There are plenty of organizations doing great work in Punjab. Their resources are limited. Their reach is limited by the Indian state itself. We had a Singh from California donate money to the farmers' protest. They took those receipts and said he was funding a terrorist project in Punjab. So he can no longer send money in there. Jaggi, a UK citizen, started neverforget1984.com, and he remains in an Indian jail today under no legal cause. There is nothing incriminating him of any crime. He was tortured, he was electrocuted, he was beaten, and he remains in an Indian jail today, 7 years later. But they're trying to convince us that our genocide is not still happening. They're trying to convince us ਕਿ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀਆਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਗਲਤ ਹਾਂ, ਸਾਡਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ. It's not practical. Whatever the reasoning may be. But we can all agree that the chance of freedom is better than a sure death. It's better than a guaranteed death. And at the current trajectory, Sikhi itself is being eliminated by the Indian state. Our history is being distorted. It will only be a matter of 20 to 25 years when the Indian population ne Darbar Sahib te bhi chad ke auna te kehna aa jehda sona ਤੁਹਾਡਾ actually ਸਾਡਾ ਆ, ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ੇ ਆ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ੇ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰਧਾਮ ਆ ਇਹ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਮੰਦਿਰ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ. And we will see this in our lifetimes. Which part of history do we want to be on? Also, we'll never agree. I have one more slide. We'll never agree on every issue. That's just the nature of reality. ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਿ ਦੂਜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਹਿਮਤ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ. But at the end of the day, do we agree on something? And how do we move forward from there? If you think that Khalistan is not the answer, if you think Ajadi is not the answer, do you agree that drugs are being peddled into Punjab and are actually, ruining the youth of Punjab? If you do, can you help set up de-addiction clinics? Let's start somewhere. Let's find some common ground and move forward. Our personal opinions may not matter. ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਡਿਸਐਗਰੀਮੈਂਟ ਇੰਨੀ ਦੂਰ ਤੱਕ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੱਗਾਂ ਲਾਉਣ ਤੇ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ that ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਾਲ ਸਹਿਮਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਹੁਣ ਮਾਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਪੈਣਾ. But that's not the way reality should operate. That's not a healthy and progressive way to operate. There is certainly something that we agree on. I may not agree on everything with you. ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਹਉਮੈ ਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਹੱਦ ਤੱਕ ਲੈ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਵਾਚ ਹੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਦੀ ਪਛਾਣ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਨਾ ਦੋਸਤ ਦੀ ਪਛਾਣ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। And this comes back to Gurbani. As we delve further into Gurbani, as we become more and more obsessed with Naam Bani Sangat, we understand from a macro level that these are menial issues. ਦੀਪ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਦੀ ਪਛਾਣ ਕਰੋ। ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਪਛਾਣ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੜਨਾ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਰੇਕ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਤੇ ਸਹਿਮਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। And I'll end it off with a quote from Jaswant Singh Ji. Our greatest weakness lies in the fact that we are trying to domesticate the center of truth that is Sikhi within the dominant politics of falsehoods. Come, let us attach ourselves to politics bound by dharam. Abandoning the politics of subjugation and domination, come, let us attach ourselves to truth and commit to the fight for true freedom, Khalistan. We like to, out of convenience, say, Jaswant Singh ji ਤਾਂ ਸਿਰਫ human rights activist ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ 25,000 ਲਾਵਾਰਿਸ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਹ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸੀਗੇ. We almost exclusively pay attention to that part, not his political ideology. ਕਿ ਇਹ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੱਲ ਕੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਰੈਗੂਲਰਲੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ। ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੱਢਤਾ, and we are moving forward with one that is convenient to us. So ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਮੰਨ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ, let's understand what his contribution is and what his ideology is, and personally, on a personal level, how we can contribute to sovereignty. If our solution is complacency, if our solution is ignorance and sitting in a corner and pretending these things don't exist and being that bird that is closing its eyes while the cat is right in front of it about to eat it, ਜੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਹੱਲ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਰਾਜ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਆ। But that is not the story of the majority. How do we contribute? How do we be on the right side of history? Our shaheeds never hesitated from giving their own lives for righteousness and for justice. And our fears are very small. In a materialistic society, we have learned to place the importance on all kinds of falsehoods, on all kinds of temporary, impractical things. As we get more into Gurbani, as we learn our history more, we will understand what our direction is, and that without Khalistan, without Purna Ajadi, ਇਹ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਜੰਜੀਰਾਂ ਆ, they will continue to be around our necks. So where do we want to be? ਇਹ ਸਵਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮੋਰੇ ਆ ਜੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਹਾਂਜੀ ਬਾਬੀ। So basically the question is, if we do get sovereignty, this is the population that will populate it, and because of that, it would almost be better to not have it. I think that ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। We don't understand ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, we don't understand our capabilities, because from every angle, ਆ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਘੱਟ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, even this is suppressed by the Indian state from some extent, whether it be from deleting our posts and whatnot. We don't understand what our potential is. But we understand that in India right now, what our outcome will be. And our outcomes are all already determined. And that is the complete and utter elimination of Sikhi and Sikhs to begin with. So while we can try to make the point that we've diverted from the path, and all of those things are justified, however, unless we can agree that killing people is better than a potential hypothetical situation that we don't have an answer to, that elimination of Sikhi entirely is better than what our hypothetical outcomes could be in the future, we don't have a definitive answer. And that is the definitive answer we wait for. So getting Ajadi is not the end goal. Ajadi is not, ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ end goal ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੀ ਹੋਣਾ? That is the beginning. But we're not even at step one. We don't even understand who our dushman is. We don't even understand from what angles we are being attacked and silenced. And until we have an awareness on why freedom itself, why sovereignty itself is important, we're always going to be astray. We will always be stuck fighting small battles amongst other people, amongst Gurdwara committees, amongst whatever. We don't understand what our potential is. Nor can we practically say what our potential will be. So there are no definitive answers, but I'm willing to take a chance. I'm willing to take a chance that a Sikh Raj, jithe sirf 6% Sikh sige, 60% Musliman sige, 30% Hindu sige, in that Raj where there was not a single riot, not a single hanging, and respect of every single religious institution, I'm willing to bet that our ideals of Sikhi will help recreate something like that. And I'm also willing to bet that that is 1,000,000 times better than what the circumstances of Punjab and Sikhs are right now. ਹਾਂਜੀ ਭਾਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਤੁਰਨਾ ਆ ਜਾਓ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਇਹ ਇੰਨੀ ਦੂਰੋਂ ਆਏ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਤੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਮਰਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਹਰੇਕ ਦਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰੀਦੀਆਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਇਹ ਇਟਸ ਮੋਰ ਦੈਨ ਵਾਟ ਵੀ ਕੈਨ ਡੂ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਇਜ਼ ਬਿਗਰ ਪਰ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਛੋਟਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਹਰੇਕ ਦਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਕੈਨ ਐਟ ਲੀਸਟ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਉਹ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਨਵਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਰੀਜਨਲ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਕਮ ਹੇਅਰ
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. First of all, Prabhjot Singh Ji, that was wonderful. I've just, I was listening online, but also listening to what is your role. I think that is a big impact on our youth. And I think a lot of the questions come to what is the role of Sikh youth that can take in our community? And I think those are big questions where our youth need to have that voice, making sure they have the courage to speak out about injustice or fighting for human rights issues. Those are really big community programs that we talk about. But I'm going to just tell you my story. So I am your regional counselor for wards 2 and 6. But I do want to let you know I've been an introvert my whole life. I've been scared of speaking in public. I'm the most quietest person in my family. So to see me, a lot of family members to see me here, they are, proud to have me here, but to also speak about injustice against Sikhi. When we look at what's happening around the world and what's happening right here in Brampton, we're seeing a lot of our youth are coming together and we're trying to make a pathway for them. So they have a platform where they can talk about these issues. And I just want to say thank you, Virji, for bringing that up. I think one of the things is having that role and making sure that, yes, if you have money, please donate, seva karo, dasfand kado. Jithe sode kol platform हैगा, political platform हैगा, तुसी आपदी आवाज़ उठाओ. जिथे आपां injustice दी गल करदे आ, human rights दी issues करदे आ, ते हुण जेह्ड़े अपने youth हैगे आ, आपां उन्होंने guide करिए, जिथे आपां वधिया तरीके नाल society नूं लैके आ सकदे आ. So I just want to say thank you so much, and I think for me, being a role model for a lot of youth, making sure I'm a role model and a pathway for our Sikh women, especially with the star, that we are able to become whatever you want to become if you put that passion, bring your Sikhi, and fighting for injustice. So thank you so much. I just do have appreciation for you, and I just want to award that to you. Thank you.
ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਨਵਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਜੀ